It has actually been a privilege to have been the leader of MK for the last 25 years, and I guess it would be an understatement to say that 25 years is a long time in politics. I even got a fleeting mention on the BBC Politics Southwest show recently, and Martin Oates, the presenter, congratulated me on my Silver Jubilee, and then he went on to say how my time as MK chief represented stability in politics, something he contrasted with the chaos in Westminster at the moment. So, looking back though, I think I have a sense of considerable pride that MK has stood up for Cornwall at every opportunity during this time, and we've worked really hard to show there is an alternative to the Westminster offer. Together we've repeatedly made the arguments that matter for greater self-government, fair funding, for social justice, for housing justice, for environmental protections, and so much more. And yet it has also been very frustrating. I think many of us here today have spent years banging our heads against brick walls in the name of Cornwall, while watching successive UK governments fail to follow what I would term our advice. But most of all, it's been wonderful to have been part of a team that always puts Cornwall at the heart of everything we do. And I'd like to thank everyone who's worked with me over the last 2.5 decades, whether serving as a councillor, standing as a candidate, supporting us with donations, or helping with all manner of campaigns. In my contribution today, I want to spend some time focusing on our continuing push for home rule for Cornwall, so as we seek parity with Wales and Scotland. It is so pleasing that in a few minutes we will launch our Towards the Cornish Parliament policy document. It makes the obvious case that our historic and modern nation needs devolution to prosper. But to the Westminster parties, devolution, and I'd have to say this is devolution within inverted commas, it's not the far-reaching shift of powers away from Westminster that led to the reconvening of the Scottish Parliament and the creation of a Welsh Parliament. No, to them it's all about tweaks to local government, tweaks to Cornwall's over-centralised, under-resourced single unitary authority, a setup that represents a massive, unacceptable democratic deficit compared to the other Celtic nations of the UK. And in many ways, I have to assume that what they term devolution is actually a form of business as usual. As we all know, the Conservative administration at Cornwall Council is promoting a county deal with an unwanted local government mayor. We had hoped that we'd have the detail of that to discuss today, but it's not happened because of the dysfunction in South West 1. You may have seen though the open letter from the leader, Linda Taylor. She describes the deal as an ambitious devolution package which could make a huge difference to the lives and livelihoods of those living and working in Cornwall. She has written about how the government requires a change in how the political leadership of Cornwall Council is determined, a directly elected mayor, and how this is key to securing, I quote, the most ambitious bespoke deal possible. But she's not talking about the best deal possible, that would be a Cornish Parliament. She is talking about what is possible within the non-devolution local government constraints put in place by the UK government. She also said it's about making sure Cornwall is not a poor relation and left behind. It is about a stronger, more sustainable Cornwall for current and future generations. I'm sure we all agree with such words. It's almost like the Conservatives have co-opted our language, but in using them, they continue to undermine and even sabotage Cornwall's push for proper devolution. And did you hear what the new Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, said last Thursday? He announced a new devolution deal that will bring an elected mayor to Suffolk, and he added the deals to bring mayors to Cornwall, Norfolk, and this is great, and an area in the northwest, he couldn't even remember where it was, somewhere up in the northeast I should say, were to follow shortly. So there you have it. The ambition of the Conservatives is to treat Cornwall on a par with the English counties of Norfolk and Suffolk. There is no plan to deliver national government for Cornwall on a par with Scotland and Wales, but to straitjacket us into a permanent local government never land that totally ignores our status as one of the historic nations of the UK. Leaks about the deal suggest that there will be a 30-year investment fund with an allocation of 12 million a year, while there's been speculation there'll be some funding for Cornish identity and culture. Now, I'm happy to welcome extra monies for local government, and I'm hopeful that the UK government may finally be doing something to meet its international obligations towards the Cornish, but that is not devolution. I will tell you what I want to see from real devolution, and that is Cornwall having the same powers as Wales and Scotland and being able to make the really big decisions. So, when the Scottish Parliament reached its 20th birthday in 2019, the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, celebrated that fact by pointing out that they were able to make decisions substantially different to those of Westminster and to help build a better and fairer country. She mentioned a few achievements: introduction of free personal care for the elderly, scrapping of tuition fees in Scotland, restoring Scotland's long and proud tradition of free university education, the abolition of prescription charges, which she described as a tax on your health. The Parliament has taken the lead in so many vital areas: climate change, land reform, the rights of the homeless, zero waste, child poverty, fuel poverty. Here's a few more: extension of the right to vote for 16 and 17-year-olds, introduction of free school meals for children in primary schools, an end to parking charges at NHS hospitals. The Parliament also used its powers to introduce restrictions better suited to Scotland during the coronavirus pandemic. And this year, they passed the Cost of Living Tenant Protection Act, which introduced a rent freeze and a moratorium on evictions. Opponents of devolution often say we shouldn't be worrying about constitutional change when there are real critical issues to deal with. But as can be seen in Scotland, constitutional change drives wider societal changes to improve the lives of one and all. And we here in Cornwall merit the same settlement achieved in Scotland. Not just going to pick on the Tories, I'm going to move on to Labour actually. Their Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, was in Cornwall recently, and she was speaking at something you might not have clocked, the Anthropy Conference at the Eden Project. Passed you all by? Okay. The event challenged people to join a unique moment in time to challenge the national narrative, consider the qualities we live by, and build a positive, equitable, sustainable, successful future. Obviously, they didn't ask for our view about any narrative for our nation, so I didn't bother to turn out and mix with the great and the good. That was a positive decision. It had nothing to do with the fact that the tickets cost £1,000 each. Yeah. I think they really wanted to engage with the people who lived in Cornwall and what their views were. Anyway, back to Miss Reeves. When she was down here, she told the media she wanted to see decisions made closer to where people live. She said local leaders have a better idea about the priorities in their areas. She also said Labour is looking actively at how we can get more powers into the hands of local decision makers here in Cornwall. But in a constant refrain we often get from the Labour Party, she said structure was not important. Whenever we hear this argument, we know that Labour, just like the Tories, cannot get past seeing Cornwall as a local government unit, and viewing devolution to them is about limited accommodations with Cornwall Council. It is about structures. Structures are important. To secure powers of significance, we need the creation of our own parliament. Now, some Labour activists, they've been campaigning on housing matters, and they've been bemoaning that Cornwall does not have the powers to deal with the housing crisis. Quite often, they actually point to what the Labour government is doing in the Welsh Parliament. And now the Conservatives are in power, they're asking why shouldn't Cornwall have the same powers over housing as Wales? I cannot disagree, but I do have to remind them that it was a Labour government which dismissed our demands for greater powers for Cornwall in the 2000s, including the 50,000 declarations for Cornish Assembly, So it is down to Labour that we do not have those powers today that they're moaning about. And let's focus on those powers for a second. The Welsh Parliament, when it was still called the National Assembly, it made provision for the creation of a national development framework for Wales. All decisions about planning for Wales taken in Wales. They abolished the right to buy, the right to acquire of council houses and protected them. And they've introduced legislation to allow local councils to charge a 300% premium on council tax and other measures to control second homes through the planning system. That's what we want, but I make one prediction today. The proposed county deal will not include anything about control over housing and planning, such as those being used by the Welsh Parliament. But shouldn't that be the litmus test about the value of any deal that's put in front of people? As we've already spoken about this morning, there's been a housing crisis in Cornwall for decades, but it's now worse than it's ever been, and surely devolution needs to provide Cornwall with the tools to achieve housing justice. We really do need to be angry about what's going on. So many households are suffering, so many communities are suffering, and the fabric of many villages are being destroyed, while the external focus on Cornwall's housing market is almost like rubbing salt into the wound of the stresses of our society, isn't it? And the madness is all around us, that's what I have to say. And I've got a couple of examples to share. Daily Telegraph. Daily Telegraph readers, many? That's good. Did you see the news story that the heading, Cornwall cannot survive without second homes? Gets worse. The article dismissed concerns about the need for lifeboat operatives to live within 5 minutes of the station for a shout as, wait for it, a niche local issue. Second example, I'm going to drone on a bit more on this one. How many of you watched Channel 4's Finding the Cornish Dream? Very sensible. Those are you. You'll be the ones with the lower levels of blood pressure. So it was described as a branded entertainment partnership, which aimed to build awareness of a UK residential property portal provider known as On the Market. It was all about estate agents showing prospective buyers around dream homes in Cornwall, helping them to navigate its thriving property market. That's all direct quotes of what it's about. Cut to the chase, it's basically estate agents making programs about themselves to sell themselves, and it's going out on television as if it's a genuine documentary. It's appalling. And those of you that were lucky enough not to see the programme, I would describe it better as selling Cornwall to the highest bidder. It will not surprise you that if you watched it, and these are direct quotes as well, sort of jumbled up for a bit of fun, the accompanying commentary was basically beaches, charming villages and market towns, beaches, rolling countryside, beaches, dramatic wilderness, more beaches. Oh, and award-winning beaches. That's pretty much the programme. And in terms of the properties, the focus was on dwellings with ridiculous price tags in coastal and secluded rural locations. One couple, we were told, searched high and low for their dream house. And after scouring all the local estate agents, they finally managed to secure a house overlooking the beach. The house near Newquay cost 1.45 million. They then spent almost exactly the same amount of money to completely rebuild it, spending the best part of 3 million on it. And on the programme, the couple themselves said it was all about their priority, which was creating great family memories. But it's actually registered on Airbnb. And last month you could have booked it for a week. How much? Go on, have a guess. £1,000. Some say 5? Well, if you'd actually read your article in Cornish Nation, which I'm reusing, you would have got the answer, which is £14,735 for 1 week in October. I'll say that again. £14,735, which is made up of 7 nights at a collective cost of £11,700, a service charge of £2,135, and then a cleaning fee of £900. How shocked are you by that? That's just unbelievable in terms of the inequality of the housing market. Remember what I said about them searching high and low for their dream property? It has since transpired that the owners of this house already own the next door property. So from having searched high and low, they actually bought next door. And their previous property, wait for it, is also an extremely expensive Airbnb, but that one's only about £9,000 a week. So there you go. They're looking to create wonderful family memories, which I can assume is only wonderful family memories of counting money. Again, as we've covered today, there's so many local people struggling to access basic housing, to rent or purchase at a sensible price, or people facing evictions because people wish to sell their properties or turn them into Airbnbs. Such a programme was so unbelievably crass and insensitive. Here's a few words other people have used to describe it: shameful, grotesque, disgusting, toxic. I don't know about you, but I kind of think it's almost like there's a reality show going on in Cornwall called Lifestyle Cornwall, but we're not involved. And also I use that term reality quite advisedly. The reality for so many in Cornwall is low wages, high housing costs, deprivation with thousands and thousands struggling to make ends meet. And those are the people that we're always going to be standing up for. So I'm pleased this morning that we restated our commitment to proper local needs housing over the delivery of open market housing, our commitment to control, reverse the spread of second homes, and also importantly our call for planning controls on Airbnbs and an immediate ban on residential properties being turned into such Airbnbs. Given the attitude of central government to address this problem, which they're not, we need a new political system with all aspects of housing and planning devolved to Cornwall, which will be better to deliver the housing justice that we so badly need. And again, we'll come on to that in a minute with the launch of our Parliament for Cornwall document. Friends, 25 years ago, 4th of October 1997, when I became leader of MK, it was in my local village hall at Fratton. And in my first speech, I reached out and called for a cross-party campaign for greater self-government for Cornwall. What happened was a great disappointment. Support from the other parties was really transient. And instead of an assembly or a parliament, we ended up with the centralisation of local government forced upon us. I want to remind you of what some of the Westminster Circle actually said. So I've got a quote here. This is a briefing for government ministers what to say when in Cornwall. Although the campaign for a Cornish Assembly grabs the headlines, there is a growing but less auditable groundswell of informed opinion in favour of a unitary council for Cornwall. In Cornwall, people identify with the county and their village or market town rather than district council boundaries. The supporters of a unitary Cornwall could see it nestling quite happily within the southwest region of the centre. So there you go. Whatever you say, they think the outcome you deserve is something different. Now, these disappointments we may have had over the last few years should never dampen our resolve to continue campaigning for devolution. And in the coming weeks, there will be much focus on the so-called county deal, the local government mayor, Now, I just want us not to be distracted. We know where we stand. We want real devolution. We want a parliament, and we've got to keep banging that drum and not getting caught up in arguing about local councils. And so I issue a challenge today to all parties active in Cornwall, all MPs, all would-be MPs, to be clear where they stand, to confirm if they back our call for a parliament, or to tell us what they do actually support. And it's up to us to keep that pressure up. And friends, that is our goal going forward in the next few months, keeping up that pressure for a Cornish Parliament. And I've just got one more thing to say. I've done 25 years up here, so I'm looking out at you lot. Who wants to do the next 25 years? Thank you.